Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. This week you guys sent in something that really got us thinking.
Yeah, this piece titled God Keeps His Promise, focusing on the passage from 2 Kings.
Right, chapter 8, verses 1 through 29. It's dense.
It is, lots to unpack.
And that's what we are going to do today. Unpack it, really get to the heart of this devotional text for you all.
We'll sure pull out the most valuable insights.
Exactly. So you can see how these themes, trusting in God's promises, obedience, and the impact of leadership, how they all work together, and then maybe how they could apply to your own life,
Absolutely. I think to really grasp what's happening in this chapter, we need to keep in mind verse 19. It says, "Nevertheless, for the sake of his servant David, the Lord was not willing to destroy Judah. He had promised to maintain a lamp for David and his descendants forever."
Right. So that promise to David, that's like the foundation,
Yeah, the bedrock. Everything else builds on that promise.
I like that. The bedrock. That's a great way to put it. And the devotional you shared really points out two key areas that we see in this part of 2 Kings. First, God's provision through obedience, and then the impact of leadership on a nation.
Okay, so let's start with the first one.
All right. God's provision through obedience. So what's actually happening in these opening verses?
So it starts with the prophet Elisha, right? He's giving a warning to a woman from Shunem.
Okay.
He tells her about this horrible famine coming and tells her she should leave her land for 7 years.
7 years.
7 years to survive, And here's the amazing thing. She doesn't even question it. Just packs up her whole household and leaves.
Wow, that's some serious trust to just pick up and go like that.
Right. Then after the famine, she comes back. But of course, now she has to figure out how to get her property back.
Yeah, I bet that wasn't easy.
Definitely not. But this is where it gets interesting, right? You were talking about trusting in God's promises.
Exactly. How does her obedience connect with getting her land back?
Well, think about the timing of it all. As the Shunammite woman goes to the king to plead her case, guess what?
What?
The king is talking with Gehazi,
Who's that?
Elisha's servant.
Oh, okay.
And they are talking about all the amazing things Elisha has done. And guess what one of the examples is?
I'm guessing it's her story.
You got it. The Shunammite woman.
No way.
The devotional calls this divine timing, and it is, right? I mean, think about it. The king is already hearing about her situation, so he's ready to listen to her request, and guess what?
He gives her the land back.
He does everything, the land and all the income it would generated while she was away.
That's amazing. It's like all the pieces just fell into place. So it really is like that saying, blessing follows obedience. It makes you think. What stands out to you about all of this?
Well, on a deeper level, it shows that when we try to follow what we believe is guidance, maybe it's advice from someone we trust or something we feel strongly about, we might end up somewhere we didn't expect.
It's not always an instant reward, though, right?
Right. It's not like a vending machine, put in obedience, get out a blessing. It's about aligning ourselves with something bigger, I think. And that whole thing with the king, it shows how we might not see how everything connects, but things are connected.
Yeah, like even the little things.
Yeah.
Maybe those coincidences are part of a bigger plan.
Yeah.
So for everyone listening, how can we apply this in our own lives?
Well, it all comes down to how we respond to guidance, right?
Okay.
Shunammite woman, she got godly counsel from a prophet.
Right.
But for us, it might look different,
Mm-hmm.
Advice, reflection, studying scripture.
A gut feeling.
Yeah, maybe. The important thing is to pay attention to those things.
Yeah.
And then be willing to act, even when it's hard.
It's hard to step outside your comfort zone.
For sure. And then there's a waiting,
Right. The Shunammite woman had to wait 7 years.
Yeah. The devotional makes a good point. Obedience doesn't always equal instant results. We might face setbacks, challenges, even when we're trying to do the right thing.
So we need to trust God's timing.
Yes, exactly. Don't give up. What seems lost can be restored, maybe not when we want it, but when it's time. So keep going.
That's a good word. Okay, so we've looked at God's provision through obedience, right? But now the devotional shifts a bit to the impact of leadership on a nation.
Yeah, it zooms out a bit.
So what happens in these verses that show this?
It's all about the political climate at the time.
Okay.
So there's a change in leadership in Aram. You might know it as Syria.
Okay.
Ben-Hadad dies and Hazael takes over. And this causes a lot of instability in the region.
Makes sense. New leadership, new problems.
Right. And then the narrative switches to Judah, where the king is still ruling. And this is important. Remember that key verse about David?
Yeah.
Well, God decides to spare Judah, even though the king wasn't exactly, the best.
Back then, the most faithful.
Yeah. And the reason given It's for David's sake. That promise God made to David to establish his dynasty, it's powerful.
So even when the leaders aren't following God, he is still keeping his promises. He's still protecting the nation because of his commitment to David. Why is this important for us?
It shows that leadership has a huge impact on a nation, how it functions, how people live.
Right, for better or worse.
Exactly. Look at the change in Aram. It affected everyone around them, including Israel, and the same with Judah. The king's leadership would have had a direct impact on the people, their daily lives, their faith. It reminds us that God's promises, they're not just for individuals, but for communities, for nations even, for generations.
And even when things seem chaotic, politically, there's still a bigger plan at work, right?
That's the point. It's a comfort, especially when we see so much turmoil in the world. Maybe some not so great decisions being made. There's something bigger going on.
I like that.
Yeah.
So how can we apply this understanding of leadership in our own lives? Because not all of us are presidents or prime ministers.
That's true. But it's not just about holding a position, right?
So what can we do?
Well, first, pray. The devotional reminds us to pray for our leaders, for wisdom, for justice, for peace.
Okay, so prayer is our first action step.
Absolutely, and it's something everyone can do. Then think about how we choose leaders.
You mean voting?
Voting, yes, but also in our communities, organizations, groups even. Our choices matter.
So being informed is important and participating.
Yes, and finally, remember that our faith should shape how we live in the world.
Okay.
Being involved in our communities, standing up for what's right, that all matters. We all have influence. It all adds up.
Right. Our actions have an impact on the people around us. It's not just about those at the top, it's about all of us. So as we wrap up our deep dive into 2 Kings 8, what are the key things we should remember?
Well, the story of the Shunammite woman, it's a powerful example of how obedience, even when it's hard, can lead to God's provision. And then zooming out, we see how important leadership is and how God's promises extend beyond just us to our communities and nations.
And ultimately, it comes back to trusting in God's faithfulness.
Yes, he keeps his promises. Even in the midst of chaos, of political change, of personal struggles, he's always working things out, even when we can't see it.
That's a good reminder. And the devotional ends with such a powerful statement. Be a God-honoring leader.
It really is. And remember, leadership isn't just about titles, it's about influence. It's about living with integrity in our families, our jobs, everywhere. We all have the potential to lead in a way that honors God.
That's a powerful thought. So for all of you listening, think about this. How can you trust in God's promises more? And how can you, as a leader in your own life, use your influence to make a difference?
That's the question we all need to ask ourselves.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
See you next time.